I got to the Tianlong training camp with the others. Instructor Xiaji looked surprised when I bet against the guys from the 5 great academies. I hadn't even finished high school yet, but I still put down the wager and said I'd pay if I lost. He glanced at Instructor Lu Chen, but Lu Chen stayed completely calm. Xiaji told everyone to quiet down, said, "Follow me," and led us inside. The camp was much bigger than it looked from outside. As we walked down the main road, he pointed out the areas. Left side for regular training, fitness, combat techniques, skills. Right side for simulated battlefields with monster tides. Ahead were mental pressure chambers, elemental rooms, dungeons, mission hall, and points exchange. The new guys were impressed. These facilities were better than what we had at the academies. Some older students passed by and greeted us, asking about the new batches from the different schools. Shen Jinglei walked beside me and explained quietly. He said after the 3-month newcomer period with classes and tests, most people join factions. The Big Five are basically the ones from the 5 great academies, Genuine Society, Tianwu Alliance, and the others. People team up for better access to resources, training rooms, and missions. Solo is harder. He called himself a lone wolf type, a strong individual. I reminded him he just tried to team up with me. He laughed it off and said that's different. Then he brought up the bet. He said I was bold but reckless. My talent is clearly strong since they took me early, but the most important thing here is proper training. Technique, combat rhythm, force application, battlefield judgment. He gave examples. 2 people with 200 strength. 1 without technique wastes most of it. The trained one gets way more out of the same stats. Same with skills. Landing them consistently in real fights matters more than raw power. Shen Jinglei glanced at the guys from the 5 great academies and kept talking. He said even though they got picked by Tianlong, their real edge was the systematic training they already had from the academies. Their class development, skill mastery, and combat experience were way ahead of a normal high school student. No matter how strong my talent was, right now I was still an unpolished gem and might not have the advantage in the test. I just nodded. He looked surprised. That's it? I said, what you said makes sense. But whether it makes sense and whether I'll lose are 2 different things. Shen Jinglei paused, then laughed. Fine. Now I'm actually looking forward to seeing this. We reached a huge black building. Instructor Xiaji led us inside. The room was enormous, with special alloy walls covered in formations and all kinds of testing equipment I'd never seen. Big crystal pillars, floating silver rings, rune-covered metal drums, and combat pods. The staff got everything ready. Instructor Xiaji explained the test. There were 6 parts total. 4-dimensional test, strength, agility, constitution, spirit, 15 points each. Combat test 20 points, potential test 20 points. Total 100. No external gear, no potions, no help from others. No skills except in the combat test. He called the first name, Gu Qinghan from Star Academy. A silver-haired guy stepped forward. Shen Jinglei told me he was a well-known magical class genius with very strong spirit. Gu Qinghan walked up to a giant metal drum over 3 meters tall. I asked Shen about it since I hadn't seen it before. He explained it was standard university equipment for the strength test. You hit it with everything you've got. The score is base coefficient times skill coefficient. Base coefficient starts at 2 for average. Higher attributes multiply it. Skill coefficient starts at 1 for raw power. Good technique, force application, bursts, coordination raises it. The other 3 attributes work the same way. I asked if high enough attributes could still get a perfect score even with low skill. He said theoretically yes, but it's unfair. Some people are just born with it. Still, perfect 15 on 1 attribute with only skill coefficient 1 would need base attributes over 7 times average. That's basically impossible. Even top academy graduates are around 4 times at best. That's why training matters more. Attributes have limits, but skills let you get way more value from what you have. I nodded and asked, I get the 4-dimensional and combat tests, but how do they measure the potential test? Shen Jinglei said the potential test is simple. He pointed to a big transparent crystal ball floating on a silver base with a nebula inside. You just put your hand on it. It reads your class quality, skills, growth potential, attribute potential, bottlenecks, and job transfer stuff to give a score out of 20. Normally over 10 is good, over 12 means core level in the academies, over 15 is top tier. He told me his first potential score was under 10, but after getting an SSS rank job transfer, it jumped to 13. He's aiming for another SSS on the second transfer to push it past 15. I told him getting SSS is impressive and wished him luck on the next one. He looked surprised by how direct I was and said if I lose points later, he might lend me some. Then Gu Qinghan started the tests. For strength, he punched the giant drum and got 7.3. Shen Jinglei said the indentation showed decent base attributes, around 4 times average, and the ripples showed good technique, about 1.8 coefficient. Next was agility on a hovering treadmill. He got 7.8. For the mental test, he pressed on a pale blue crystal and endured increasing pressure. He scored 12.0, which got people talking since it was clearly his strong point as a magic class. Constitution test used a gray crystal that hit him with layered negative effects. Poison, burn, frost, he held on but looked rough and scored 6.8. Then potential test on the big crystal ball. He got 13.4. Finally came the combat test. He stepped into a silver simulation pod. It closed and showed a virtual battlefield on the screen with 10 opponents. Shield warrior, assassin, archer, mage, healer. Shen Jinglei said it's one of the core pieces of equipment here. Shen Jinglei lowered his voice and told me the simulation pod comes from an old top powerhouse called the Illusion Weaver. That guy could create false worlds and virtualize status. Before he died, he made special equipment that projects people into a virtual space for fights. Later, they built the whole virtual network from it. Inside, you feel pain and fatigue, but don't actually die, so it's perfect for the combat test. On the screen, Gu Qinghan's fight started. He used Starlight Barrier and Starlight Orbs to attack, but the 10 enemies, Shield Warrior, Assassins, Archer, Mage, Healer, worked together well. He killed 7 before an assassin got close and cut his throat. He scored 12.4 in combat. His total came to 59.7. The Star Academy people looked satisfied. After him, the rest of the 5 great academies tested one by one. Most scored between 55 and 65. Some stood out in one area, like a Tianwu melee guy with 12.7 strength or a Holy Spirit support with 14 potential, but overall the differences weren't huge. I watched quietly. Shen Jinglei kept commenting, good strength but rough technique, decent agility, footwork, weak mental, okay for tanking hits, standard genius potential. The 5 great academies people started looking annoyed. Instructor Xiaji and Lu Qin talked quietly. Xiaji said this batch was upper middle quality. Lu Qin said it was normal because frontline fighting is brutal, so more retired powerhouses are teaching at academies now. Then Xiaji called Shen Jinglei. The room got quiet. Everyone stared at him. He grinned at me and said, "Watch, I'll show you how they change faces." He walked to the strength drum, planted his heavy saber in the ground, then punched. The drum roared, caved in deep, and sent big raw ripples. He got 13.5. The whole room exploded. People couldn't believe a regular high school guy beat the Tianwu melee pros. The 5 great academies guys looked furious. Shen Jinglei turned around and asked why they stopped talking. He smiled at me and said, "See? That's face changing." Then he went to the next test. Shen Jinglei's other scores were lower. Agility 8.4, physique 9.1, mental 7.8. Someone from the 5 great academies sneered that high strength doesn't matter with such clear weaknesses. He just picked his ear and said, "Keep being jealous." He did potential next and got 13.2. Then he went into the combat test. Before entering the pod, he told the 5 great academies group to watch closely because this was his area. On the screen, he drew his blade right away and charged. He smashed through the shield warrior, cut down the archer with ranged blade aura, shattered an assassin behind him, broke a mage's barrier, and interrupted the healer. He wiped out all 10 in under 3 minutes and scored 18.0 in combat. His total was 73, the highest so far. The 5 great academies people looked furious. Instructor Xiaji said he had real ability. Instructor Lu Chen explained that Shen started as a normal Berserk Blade guest, but advanced into the rare star-shattering Heavenly Blade class with excellent evaluations. Shen Jinglei came out smiling and told them he accepted their concession. Then he walked back to me, tossed his hair, and asked if he looked handsome. I said yes. He laughed. The tests continued, but the mood was different. No one else reached 73. The highest after him was only 68.3. Shen kept commenting on their results. Then Instructor Xiaji called Shi Yanqing from Genuan Academy. The room got tense. Everyone from the 5 great academies looked hopeful. Shen Jinglei stopped joking and told me Shi Yanqing is very strong. First in Genuan's 4th year, all 3rd advancements SSS rank. As a 2nd advancement, he once killed 2 3rd advancement enemies alone on the front line. Shi Yanqing walked up calmly. He was the one expected to take back the face of the 5 great academies. He stepped forward and punched the strength drum. The sound exploded and the surface caved in deep. I watched Shi Yanqing test. His strength came in at 13.0, bit less indentation than Shen Jinglei, but much wider ripples. Then agility 11.6, physique 12.2, mental 10.9, potential 14.1, and combat 16.2, total 77 points. The 5 great academies group cheered. They were happy someone finally beat Shen. Shi Yanqing told Shen he'd wait for him to catch up in the camp. Shen just grinned and said it wouldn't take long. He also pointed out that one guy 2 years ahead of him beating him wasn't something to be so proud of, and asked if their standards were really that low. That shut them up again. Instructor Xiaji and Lu Chen both said sure was impressive. Lu Chen mentioned his own old score was 75. More people tested after that. A Tianwu 4th year got 74, a Star Academy mental specialist got 75. The rankings became Shy 1st at 77, that Star Guy 2nd at 75, Tianwu 3rd at 74, and Shen 4th at 73. Shen looked at the board and told me he wasn't worried. He had checked out the newcomers beforehand and knew only those 3 could beat him, so he'd still win the bet. He said at this camp you need to know how to calculate as well as fight. The last few finished. No one else passed Shen. A Holy Spirit support got close at 72.5, but that was it. Then instructor Xiaji called my name, Lu Fang. Everyone looked over. Most seemed bored or indifferent. They remembered the bet, but figured a high school guy with no university training couldn't possibly beat them. Shen patted my shoulder and said good luck. Even beating just one of them would be enough to embarrass the group. I smiled and told him my goal was first place. He froze and looked stunned. The people from the 5 great academies heard it too and started laughing. They said I was cute and cocky, that reality would teach me the gap soon, and that I was basically handing them points. Instructor Xiaji told Lu Chen that losing some points would be good for me. Lu Chen just said, not necessarily, and keep watching. I walked up to the giant drum and punched it. The sound was plain, no ripples at all. Everyone thought I had 0 technique, and my score would be low. But the drum caved in extremely deep. The room went quiet, then erupted. The light screen showed strength test, 15 points. Perfect score. First one of the whole test. No technique, just pure base strength. The 5 great academies people were shocked. They couldn't believe a high school guy with no ripples got a perfect score. Shen Jinglei looked completely stunned. He remembered telling me earlier that perfect with only base attributes was basically impossible. Instructor Xiaji was surprised too and asked Lu Chen if he knew. Lu Chen said this was the first time he'd seen my strength as well. I stepped up for the tests. Instructor Xiaji said something about finally understanding why I was specially recruited just from that raw strength alone. Instructor Lu Chen didn't disagree. He knew a bit about me, but this was the first time he saw how extreme my base strength really was. The 5 great academies people calmed down after the shock. They started saying that even with a perfect strength score, it didn't mean much for the whole test. A pure strength class like mine would probably be weak in agility, mental, and physique. And without technique, I'd get countered in combat. That made sense to a lot of them. Shen Jinglei rubbed his chin and seemed to agree too, though he looked a little unsure after remembering I said my goal was first place. I didn't pay attention to the talk. I walked over to the agility treadmill. No one was sneering anymore after the strength result. The treadmill started. I just ran straight at first. When the speed ramped up and virtual obstacles appeared, I didn't use fancy footwork or predictions. I changed direction by force right when they showed up. It wasn't elegant or efficient, but my base speed was so high that I still cleared everything. I left after images, made brutal turns and stops, and stayed steady the whole time. The treadmill stopped. The screen showed agility test. 15 points. Another perfect score. The room exploded again. People were cursing and saying I now had 30 points from just 2 items. The 5 great academies guys looked completely different. They couldn't explain how a strength-focused class could also max agility. Some started worrying that even if the rest were average, I'd still beat a lot of them. Others hoped the other attributes would be weak, so it would balance out. I walked up to the mental test crystal and put my hand on it. The blue light came on, and the pressure started increasing stage by stage. First stage, second, third, I felt nothing. It kept going deeper, from light blue to dark blue to purple. The pressure was way beyond what most people before second advancement could handle, but it still felt like nothing to me. I just stood there calm, breathing steady. No frown, no reaction at all. The room got completely quiet. The 5 great academies people looked more and more stiff. Then the crystal vibrated and the test ended. The screen showed mental test. 15 points. Third perfect score. No one cheered. Just heavy silence. I took my hand off and went straight to the gray crystal for constitution. Gray aura spread up my arm. Weakness, burning, freezing, poison, slow, stun. Layer after layer of negative effects hit me. Colors flashed wildly inside the crystal, but I didn't pale, didn't sway, didn't even change my breathing or expression. It was like all those effects couldn't get through at all. Someone muttered that there was no need to watch, it would be another perfect. And it was. Constitution test, 15 points. 4-dimensional all perfect. Current total, 60 points. The whole room stayed silent. Those numbers made any comment feel pointless. Instructor Xiaji stared at the screen for a long time and called me a pure stat monster, a 4-dimensional one at that. He asked Instructor Lu Chen where they found someone like me. Lu Chen said he didn't know I was this strong when he brought me back. A lot of the 5 great academies people looked numb or even a bit despairing. Some said they didn't understand how I could get perfect scores with basically no technique. They wondered what all their years of training had been for. They were used to being the monsters everyone looked up to, but today they felt what ordinary people feel when looking at them. Powerless. Even those with higher totals started to worry because I still had 2 tests left. With 60 points already, even average scores on the rest would put me high. Shen Jinglei stood there quiet for a bit, then slapped himself twice on the face. He rubbed his cheek and said quietly that it wasn't a dream. Earlier he thought my goal of first place was crazy. After each perfect score, he doubted more and more. Now he fully believed I could actually take first. I looked at the results, then headed toward the combat test pod first. The staff got it ready. Everyone's attention came back on me. A lot of people still held on to one last hope, that combat would be where I finally didn't get a perfect. They figured even with crazy base stats, real fighting needed coordination, judgment, class knowledge, and adaptability against 10 same-level enemies. I stepped into the simulation pod for the combat test. The door closed and the virtual battlefield appeared, a big, empty, black plane. I felt my body and skills worked the same as in reality. 10 enemies materialized in a balanced team: shield warrior, mage, assassin, healer, and others. As soon as it started, I raised my hand and summoned 10 money ghosts at once. They shot forward with afterimages and smashed everything. One broke the shield warrior's defense, one tore the mage's shield, one dragged the assassin out of stealth, and the rest took down the others. All 10 enemies died in 1 second. The screen showed combat test, 20 points. Time taken, 1 second. The room went completely silent. Everyone just stared. It wasn't really a fight, it was over instantly. My total went up to 80 points. I had perfect scores on the first 5 tests. Even if I got 0 on potential, I had already passed Shi and King 77. I was in first place. Instructor Xiaji looked at the screen and said quietly, "Divinity." Instructor Lu Chen agreed it was highly probable. They talked about how I'd clearly gone beyond normal professional systems. Divinity usually appears after the 3rd transition, but I showed signs already at the 1st. They tried to figure out which god it could be, but my combination of all 4 attributes maxed, and those explosive summons didn't match any known divinity path. It might be a completely new one that hasn't appeared before. They both looked at me. They said I was no longer just a genius, but a strategic-level prospect. I walked over to the last test, the potential crystal ball. The 5 great academies people watched with complicated expressions. Some said it would probably be another perfect score, too. With everything else maxed, if potential wasn't full, there would be something wrong with the test. Instructor Xiaji said it looked like the first 100-point score in history was coming. Instructor Lu Chen nodded and agreed. But then Instructor Lu Chen's face changed suddenly. He said, "Wait, something's wrong." He told Instructor Xiaji I couldn't touch that crystal ball. Xiaji's eyes widened and he said, "Oh no." I walked over to the potential test crystal ball. Instructor Xiaji suddenly shouted, "Wait, don't touch it." But it was already too late. I put my hand on it. The crystal lit up wildly. The light inside spun like crazy and turned blindingly bright. Then there was a loud crack. Dense cracks spread across the surface, and the whole crystal ball exploded into pieces that turned into light and disappeared. The base shook, and the testing screen went black. The whole room went dead silent. Everyone just stared. They had expected a full score, but not the equipment blowing up. Shen Jinglei looked at the empty base and said, "Brother, you smashed the testing equipment?" I looked at my hand and didn't say anything. I hadn't expected that either. Instructor Xiaji slapped his forehead and told the staff it was just an old crystal that was due to break anyway. Pure coincidence. Nobody believed him. I told him I didn't do it on purpose. He said it was his fault for not maintaining it properly. I asked how the score would be calculated. Instructor Xiaji said even though it exploded, he saw the fluctuations inside clearly reached full marks, so he gave me 20 points for potential. The staff updated the screen manually. Total score, 100 points. Everyone from the 5 great academies looked at the screen and stayed quiet for a long time. They had lost completely. I walked back to the group. Shen Jinglei stared at me, then poked my arm with his finger. I asked what he was doing. He said with a straight face he was checking what kind of monster I was. He shook his head and said he thought I was dreaming when I said my goal was first place. He didn't expect me to actually get 100 points. He added that he used to think he was good at showing off, but meeting me showed him there was always someone better. Shi Yanqing walked over to me. Shen Jinglei whispered that, "Here it comes." Shi Yanqing stopped in front of me, calm and serious. He said he was Shi Yanqing from Genuine Academy and asked if I wanted to be friends. I reached out my hand and said I was Lu Fang from Zhang City. We shook hands. I walked back after the tests. Shi Yanqing came up to me and said everyone would get their identity tokens soon, and that he would transfer the 10 points he owed me right away once they were credited. I nodded and said, "Okay." Shen Jinglei, standing next to me, clicked his tongue and said Sure treated people differently. Shi looked at him calmly and said the strong deserve respect. Shen asked if that meant he wasn't strong. Sure said he was strong too, but too noisy. Shen didn't have anything to say to that. Shirt turned back to me and said if there was a chance later, we could go on missions together. After that, other top newcomers from the 5 great academies started coming over one by one. The psychic guy from Star Academy, Wen Xingqi, introduced himself and said we should exchange pointers sometime. The melee guy from Tianwu, Zhao Heng, who scored 74, said my strength was impressive and he'd like to spar when possible. More of them stepped forward. They figured someone like me could become important in Tianlong later, so making friends now was smart. Instructor Xiaji told everyone that was enough and stepped forward. He said the test was over and we had all seen the results. He started his usual speech about how this batch was only average and still far from the real elites in the camp, but then he paused and looked a bit awkward because of how things went. He coughed and added that some individuals performed quite well. He told the others not to be unconvinced. They were university students from the 5 great academies, but couldn't even beat a high school student, which was shameful. The crowd reacted pretty flatly to that. He kept the lecture short and said that was it. We should go collect our identity tokens in the administration area. The tokens would handle our info, points, missions, and dorm access. After that, choose dorms in the rest area. Assemble at the 4th training ground tomorrow morning at 8. Latecomers lose points. Dismissed. The newcomers started leaving. Many looked back at me on their way out. Shen Jinglei put his arm around my shoulder and said, "Let's go collect the tokens and his debt while we were at it." I asked if he won quite a bit too. He laughed and said not bad. Even with me taking the spotlight, he ranked 5th and would make a profit on the odds. He said having income on the first day was a good omen. We followed the crowd out. Later, only Instructor Xiaji, Instructor Lu Chen, and a few staff were left in the room. Instructor Lu Chen asked Xiaji if he lacked confidence in his speech. Xiaji admitted it was obvious. He said normally he would suppress their arrogance by saying each batch is worse than the last, but this time with me there, he just couldn't say it. Lu Chen joked that with me around, the others would be lucky not to get psychological trauma. Xiaji asked how long Lu Chen thought it would take me to finish the newcomer training. Lu Chen said within 3 years. Xiaji thought 2 years. They both agreed my foundation was strong, but I had clear shortcomings in technique that needed filling. Still, someone like me probably wouldn't follow normal logic for improvement. Xiaji said the 100 points made it hard not to have confidence. If I really had unknown divinity, my growth could exceed everyone's expectations. They said they needed to keep a close eye on me because a seedling like this couldn't run into trouble. They mentioned the front line was getting harder with higher casualties and more rift contamination. The Dragon Kingdom needed new powerhouses. Xiaji looked toward the door and said, "Maybe once I grow up I could bring more hope to humanity." I was walking with some others toward the internal affairs area to get our identity tokens. Shi Yanqing was ahead with a few guys from Genuine Academy when some seniors from the same school came up to him. Their leader, senior brother Chung, asked if the test was over and if Shi Yanqing took first place among the newcomers. He said the factions had big bets on it and Genuine Society would win a lot if he did. Shi Yanqing shook his head and said it wasn't him. Senior brother Chung got upset and asked who beat him. Someone from Tianwu, Star, or Shenji. Shi said none of them. Then he asked if it was Shen Jinglei. Shi said no. Senior brother Chung looked confused and asked who it was. Shi told him it was me, Lu Fang, a high school student from Jiangcheng. Senior brother Chung couldn't believe it at first. He asked for the score. Shi said 100 points. Senior brother Chung and the others went quiet. He called it a true freak and a fierce dragon arriving at the camp. He said at least they didn't lose to the other academies. Similar talk started spreading fast around the training camp. In less than half an hour, word about the newcomer test got around. A high school guy named Lu Fang got a perfect total score of 100 points and even broke the potential crystal. People were repeating it in the newcomer area, senior areas, mission hall, and factions. Shen Jinglei and I reached the internal affairs area. It was a white building with windows for registration and tokens. We lined up, finished the process, and got our black identity tokens. The front had the Qianlong crest, the back showed personal info like age, level, and credits. The credits on mine started going up as the bets settled. Shen Jinglei checked his token and got happy. He said there were 40 people from the 5 great academies. He lost to 3, paid out 150 credits, but won against 37 and got 370. Net profit 220, plus 73 from his own test score, total 293 credits. I walked with Shen Jinglei after getting the tokens. He looked at his credits and grinned, saying this start was perfect and that he was naturally suited for the Qianlong training camp. I checked my own token. The perfect score, plus 40 people from the 5 great academies at 10 points, each gave me another 400. Total 500 points. Shen Jinglei saw the numbers on my token, and his smile froze. He grumbled that I was the wealthiest newcomer in history. We left the internal affairs area and went to the rest area. It had rows of small villas on hillsides and by the lake, each with its own protective formation. We could pick a standard one for free or pay points for better ones. Shen Jinglei saw the prices and chose the free villa. I did the same since I didn't know the value of points yet. After binding our dorms, Shen Jinglei took me to the dungeon area. It was a big underground plaza with hundreds of dungeon entrances from level 100 to 400. I thought the resources here were way better than back in Jiangcheng. Shen Jinglei picked a level 198 nightmare difficulty dungeon called Bloodblade Wasteland. He said it was right for him. I chose a level 103 hell difficulty 1 called Black Iron Demon Nest to match my level. We swiped our tokens and entered. I appeared in a black valley under a gloomy sky. The dungeon info showed level 103, hell difficulty, with monsters starting at level 140. I summoned 10 money ghosts right away. A group of dark iron demon insects, level 140, rushed at us. The money ghosts charged and smashed them in seconds. I got experience, gold coins, and some materials. The drops and experience were clearly better than outside. I kept moving forward with the ghosts. We cleared waves of dark iron demon insects, spiders, and hounds. Their levels went up to 160, then 180. The difficulty was high, but the rewards were good too. Along the way, I picked up a lot of equipment and materials. Gold bracers, demonized iron crystals, diamond armor-piercing boots, skill books like Gale Slash and Flame Explosion Arrow. Before even reaching the boss, I already had dozens of items, including an epic Holy Light Judgment sword that gave good strength and constitution plus extra damage against dark and demon types. It didn't suit me, but it was valuable. I also got a couple ranged skill books, Flame Explosion Arrow and Windblade Rapid Fire. The money ghosts had empty slots, but after checking the effects, I didn't learn them right away. Their cooldowns and burst weren't the best fit. I decided to look for more. I went deeper into the Black Iron Demon Nest. The monsters got stronger, up to level 190 by the core area. The 10 money ghosts still handled them in a steady fight. I reached the big nest and faced the Black Iron Demon Nest Lord, a level 200 boss. It charged at me. The money ghosts collided with it and tore into its scales, but it was tough. It knocked some away with black spikes. I used money talks 3 times. Together with the ghosts, we brought it down. I got 8 million experience and leveled up to 104. The drops were everywhere. Materials, epic black iron magic armor, and skill books. One of them was Heavenly Flying Arrow. It had a combined attack bonus that worked perfectly with 10 money ghosts. I learned it right away. With my stats, 10 ghosts using it together could put out massive damage, close to 1.8 million in theory, and it didn't cost money. Good skill. I also picked up a level 50 recovery potion crafting blueprint. It wasn't useful for me directly, but I could send it back to the Fang Fang Chamber of Commerce. It would help them make steady gold long term, which benefits me too through wealth recruitment. I packed up the other equipment and materials to send back as well. This one run already gave way more than I expected. A level, good loot, the right skill, and a blueprint. Qianlong dungeons are on another level. Shenjinglei wasn't out yet, so I decided to run it 2 more times to test the new skill with the money ghosts. I looked at the dungeon entrances again and picked a new one. Level 1, 04, Red Flame Insect Valley, Hell difficulty. I swiped my token and went in. Inside the hot valley, magma flowed and red flame demon insects level 145 attacked. I summoned the 10 money ghosts and had them use Heavenly Flying Arrow right away. The combined attack made one powerful volley that blew apart groups of monsters before they got close. It worked great as AoE too. We pushed forward fast. Small groups we tore apart in melee. Bigger ones we cleared with the arrows. At the magma nest we faced the Red Flame Insect King, level 202. It spat huge fire waves and regenerated quickly, but the ghosts tangled with it while I fired 4 rounds of Heavenly Flying Arrow. The boss went down. I got over 8 million experience, leveled to 104, and plenty of loot, including materials and skill books. The new skill saved a lot of money compared to using money talks. I left and immediately entered another level 104 Hell Dungeon. Same approach. Ghosts advancing. Heavenly Flying Arrow for bursts and bosses. The Petrified Giant Python boss had high defense and healing from the earth, but 4 volleys of arrows pinned it dead. I leveled up to 105. These runs gave good experience, equipment, materials, and useful items for the Chamber of Commerce. I packed everything to send back later. Efficiency here was way better than outside. When I exited into the plaza, Shen Jinglei was already waiting, leaning against a pillar with his saber. He looked surprised. "You're out already?" He said I was too fast for a hell dungeon. I nodded and said it was standard procedure. Shen's mouth twitched, and he muttered that I really knew how to act cool. He asked if we were heading back now. I shook my head. I looked around at the dungeon entrances and told Shen Jinglei I wasn't tired yet and wanted to grind for a few more hours. He went quiet for a second, then asked if I needed to rest and recover. I looked at him, confused, and said I had only been going for a little while. Why rest already? Shen stared at me and said I wasn't human. He had been planning to take a break after his nightmare dungeon, but seeing me keep going made him feel like he couldn't slack off. He gritted his teeth, picked a level 198 nightmare dungeon called Bone Crushing Battlefield, and went in. I chose a new one, level 105 Shadow Cavern, Hell difficulty. Shen noticed the level and froze. He knew I had started at 103, so he realized I had leveled up twice already in basically no time. He looked shocked and wanted to ask how, but I swiped my token and entered before he could speak. Inside the cold, damp cavern, Shadowstone beasts level 146 crawled out from the walls. I summoned the 10 money ghosts. They crushed the first ones easily. I followed behind calmly. After a bit, I started thinking about efficiency. My current style was strong but crude. I adjusted the ghosts' positions, 3 in front for main clashes, 2 on the flanks to protect me, 3 blocking side tunnels, and the last 2 in the back using Heavenly Flying Arrow. 2 golden arrows shot out and pinned new beasts to the walls before they could even land. The formation worked better. I kept going in the shadow cavern and started adjusting how the money ghosts worked. Before, when all 10 rushed together, they sometimes wasted damage by piling on the same monster while others got through. I split the tasks, some clearing the path, some finishing low-health targets, some on the flanks blocking spawns, and others as mobile support. It felt better right away. Damage was more even and we moved a little faster. I kept experimenting, wedge formation in tight spots, semicircle encirclement in open areas to bunch monsters up, then hit them with Heavenly Flying Arrow all at once. In the boss fight against the level 204 Shadowstone Dragon, I used 3 arrows to interrupt first, then the rest for a big burst. It worked smoother than dumping everything at once. We cleared the dungeon in 42 minutes and 16 seconds, about 30 seconds faster than my last run. That small change added up. I could tell there was still a lot of room to improve the coordination, timing, and positioning. I collected the loot and left the dungeon feeling pretty good. As soon as I stepped out into the plaza, a staff member looked shocked and asked if I was already out. I nodded. I didn't feel tired, so I picked another hell difficulty dungeon right away and went back in. Meanwhile, Chengxuan was training in a gravity room under 100 times pressure. His token vibrated with a message that I had come out. He raised an eyebrow and figured I had withdrawn early from the hell dungeon. He thought it was actually a smart move for a new high school guy. Better to recognize the limit than push too hard and fail. I came out of the shadow cavern. A staff member nearby saw me and looked completely stunned. He asked if I was already out, like he couldn't believe it. I wasn't tired, so I swiped my token and went straight back into the same hell dungeon again. Not long after, Chengxuan got a message in the gravity training room. He was under 100 times gravity and about to come find me, but when he read that I had cleared the level 105 Hell Shadow Cavern solo in 42 minutes and 16 seconds, he froze completely. He read it again, then nearly dropped to one knee from the gravity. He repeated the words out loud. Cleared. 42 minutes. Solo. Hell level. And couldn't make sense of it. He even wondered if the heavy training had messed with his head. He contacted the staff right away and asked if the record was correct. The staff sounded just as shaken and confirmed it was real. He had seen me come out himself. Chengxuan realized his earlier assumption that I had withdrawn early was completely wrong. He told the staff to have me wait, that he was coming immediately. The staff went quiet, then said I had already gone back in. Chengxuan went silent again. He couldn't believe I was grinding hell dungeons back to back with no rest. He thought normal people need time to recover stamina and focus after something that intense, especially solo. He set a reminder for 40 minutes later and decided he would head over then. I cleared the shadow cavern again. This time it took 39 minutes and 3 seconds. I checked the time on my token and felt it was good progress. I put away the loot and went straight back in for another run. Chengxuan was training in the gravity room under heavy pressure. He got the message that I had cleared it in 39 minutes solo and froze. He double-checked, then contacted the staff to confirm. When the staff said I had already gone back in right away, Chengxuan couldn't believe it. He set a reminder for 40 minutes later and came to the plaza to wait. He arrived and saw the dungeon info showed I had just entered a minute earlier. He waited there. The time kept ticking. When I came out again, the clear time was 37 minutes and 5 seconds. I looked calm, breathing steady, no mess on my clothes. Chengxuan stepped in front of me before I could enter the next dungeon. He said he was Chengxuan from Genuine Academy. He reached out to shake my hand and got straight to the point. He was there to recruit me for the Genuine Society. They have fixed resource channels, mature dungeon strategies, frontline experience, and senior students who guide newcomers. If I joined, they would give me full guidance on missions, points, dungeon mechanics, and special resources, plus the best core treatment for someone with my talent. I shook my head and told him no thanks. He asked why. I said for me a team is actually a burden. He stayed quiet for a moment, then nodded. He didn't push it. Instead, he suggested we just be friends and stay in contact for possible future cooperation. I thought about it and agreed. We exchanged info on our tokens. After that, I headed to another dungeon entrance. I chose level 106 Bone-Rotting Wasteland, held difficulty, swiped my token, and went in. Chengxuan watched me go and muttered that the world really has all kinds of people. Right then another dungeon nearby lit up and Shen Jinglei came out. He looked tired and messy, with tears in his combat suit and his saber on his shoulder. He was wiping sweat and clearly not happy with how it went. Chengxuan walked over to him too and invited him to join the Genuine Society. Shen refused right away. He said he was suited to be a lone wolf. Chengxuan told him not to decide too fast and explained that being a lone wolf in the camp is hard. Fewer missions, lower dungeon safety, more trial and error, and you need way better continuous combat ability than others. He said among the new batch, only I seem to have what it takes right now. Shen got a bit worked up and said he wasn't bad either. He mentioned after his second advancement he might catch up. Chengxuan asked if after that advancement Shen could solo same-level hell dungeons in 30-something minutes, or run several back-to-back while getting faster each time. Shen said that was impossible. Then he turned and saw the info on the dungeon gate showing I had just entered the level 106 Hell dungeon. Chengxuan told him calmly that I had already done 3 level 105 Hell runs in the time Shen did 1 nightmare, 42 minutes, then 39, then 37, and went straight into the next one. Shen stood there stunned, looking at his own torn clothes and the dungeon entrance. He finally said the world was really unfair. I kept grinding through the night. Shen Jingli stayed too. He sat by the dungeon entrance, resting with potions and then going back in. Every time I came out of a Hell dungeon, he was there, watching. He went from shocked to numb, and finally started muttering "animal" and "what an animal" under his breath. By 7:30 in the morning, I had reached level 110. The Money Ghost's coordination got a lot smoother. I had a huge pile of equipment, materials, skill books, and other useful stuff. I couldn't use most of it myself, but it would be good for the Fang Fang Chamber of Commerce. I stopped because we had to assemble at 8. I looked around and saw Shen Jinglei sitting in the corner, looking pale and tired, drinking a recovery potion with his saber beside him. I walked over and asked him how to send things out from the training camp. He pointed to the staff members and said, "Just give the items and message to them. They'll forward everything through Tianlong channels since we can't contact the outside directly." I nodded and went straight to one of the staff. When he saw me coming, he straightened up right away and asked what I needed. I told him I wanted to send a batch of items back home. He said that was fine. I started taking everything out. Rows of equipment, a small hill of materials, more than a dozen skill books. The staff member gulped when he saw the pile. Shen Jinglei noticed and came over. He looked at the loot on the ground, his eyelid twitching hard. "No way. Isn't this too much?" I told the staff it was all right. Shen Jinglei's mouth twitched, and he said to stop with the "all right" because it hurt to hear. He looked at the big pile and said it was a lot, especially since my dungeons were much lower level than his, but the Hell difficulty drop rates were better, and I had farmed way more. The staff finished listing everything and asked if I wanted to send a message. I thought for a moment and said, "Bring it to Steward Zhang. Tell him to use these resources to develop the Fang Fang Chamber of Commerce. He can decide what to sell and what to keep. Focus on expanding the scale. This batch is just the start. I'll send more later." The staff said he would handle it. After that, Shen Jinglei and I left the dungeon area and headed to the assembly point. On the way, Shen Jinglei drank a recovery potion and told me not to underestimate the newcomer training that starts today. The first 3 months are a benefit period with lots of free resources and rewards for completing training. After that, everything runs on points, missions, and rankings. He said my strength is strong, but the training focuses on techniques like force application, footwork, battlefield judgment, weak point attacks, and rhythm control. I probably haven't studied those systematically, so it might be hard to keep up at first. He offered to help me catch up if needed since he has some skill in basics. I thanked him. At the same time, back in Jiangcheng, the Fangfang Chamber of Commerce was in a morning meeting. They were short on liquid capital after my father took out a big amount, and several projects needed money. Steward Zhang was listening to the reports when he got a special call. The person on the line said they were commissioned by me to deliver a batch of supplies arriving in 8 hours. They relayed my message. Use the resources to develop the chamber, decide what to sell or keep. Focus on expansion, and more would come later. Steward Zhang was moved, but didn't expect too much since I had only been gone 1 day. Then he opened the manifest attached to the email. He froze when he saw epic equipment, ultra-rare materials, and kept going down the long list. His breathing slowed as he got to the end. The finance head asked what was wrong, but Steward Zhang stayed silent, stunned by what he saw. Most of the 5 Great Academy's newcomers were already there. Many looked over when I arrived. Shi Yanqing nodded to me, and I nodded back. Shen Jinglei looked tired, but forced himself to stand straight. Instructor Mo Jingxin walked up. She wore a black combat suit with a short trench coat and carried a sharp, dangerous aura. Everyone straightened up. She said her name and that she was level 580. Starting today, she would handle our training for the next 3 months. She glanced at the list and said she had reviewed our rookie test recordings and would arrange different training methods based on each person's strengths and problems. Back in Jiangcheng, Steward Zhang looked at the manifest in the morning meeting. He saw 5 potion-making recipes, multiple pieces of epic equipment, piles of rare materials, skill books, and more. The room erupted when he projected it. Everyone was stunned that I had sent so much after only 1 day. Steward Zhang gave new orders, readjust plans, evaluate the market before auctioning epic equipment, split materials for orders and reserves, and start potion production immediately with alchemists. The atmosphere improved fast. This batch solved urgent projects and added stable profit channels. Steward Zhang felt the chamber's expansion could speed up thanks to this support from me. Everyone straightened up as she approached. She said our spirits looked good and specifically noted that grinding dungeons all night right after arriving was how rookies should be. Shen Jinglei perked up a bit at the praise. She looked at the list and told everyone to stand properly. Her gaze passed over me quickly. She said she had reviewed the recordings of our rookie tests and understood everyone's strengths and problems. Next, she would set up different training methods based on each person's situation. I stood with the others as instructor Mo Jinkson explained the rest. Besides our customized plans, we all had to complete one basic training task every day. She tapped the screen and showed the rules. Solo run a normal grade dungeon of the same level 5 times daily. No class skills allowed and attributes suppressed to the average value for a professional at that level. The square erupted. People were shocked. No skills and suppressed attributes took away most of our advantages, yet we still had to solo 5 normal dungeons every day. It sounded brutal. She said this was only the basic plan. Then she sent each of us our customized plans to our identity tokens. People checked them and reacted strongly. Shen Jinglei looked at his and asked her straight if this was something a human could actually complete. She smiled and reminded him he had just ground dungeons all night, so why back down now? I checked mine. 10 environmental simulation sessions daily, plus gravity chamber, mental pressure chamber, reaction training room, basic close quarters combat, and battlefield command simulation. Shen leaned over, saw it, and said mine looked even more extreme. He asked if she was training me like 10 people. I said my foundation in these areas was poor, and I needed the extra training to keep up. Instructor Mo Jinkson added that everything had to be finished within 16 hours. She was already merciful by leaving 8 hours for rest. If we couldn't finish, that was on us. One newcomer stepped forward and said the intensity was too high. After the restrictions, each normal dungeon would take around 3 hours, so 5 would already eat 15 hours. Adding customized plans made it impossible in 16, maybe not even 24. Instructor Mo Jinkson listened calmly, then smiled and asked, "So what?" She said just because he couldn't do it didn't mean others couldn't, and asked if the plan was wrong or if he simply wasn't good enough. She told us any veteran under the same conditions could finish the basic plan easily and still train more. Right now, we were just trash. The square went quiet. She said she knew we felt unconvinced, but she was the instructor. Anyone unhappy could withdraw now. No one did. She smiled, gave us silver gray wristbands, and led us to the dungeon area. The wristbands suppressed our attributes to average and disabled skills. I put mine on and felt my power cut sharply. Everything felt unfamiliar. We could only enter matching level dungeons. Death kept full pain. 10 failures and we'd be sent back. Everyone started. I entered my level 110 Blacktooth Stronghold, normal difficulty. Later, Instructor Mo Jinkson opened a surveillance screen showing all of us. Instructor Xiaji appeared and called her method perverted. She asked what he meant. He said even veterans might not finish in 16 hours with the restrictions. She replied she wanted to see how we performed under impossible pressure and how much potential we could show. When he asked if anyone could finish in 24 hours, she looked at the screens, including mine, and shook her head. No. I entered the Blacktooth Stronghold. It was normal difficulty, level 110. The monsters were only level 90. I wasn't used to it after Hell Dungeons. I took out a sword and fought the first minion. It felt awkward. My movements were slow and rough. I got hit a few times before I killed it. The second one used a spear. I watched its shoulders and wrists to predict attacks, but I still got grazed. I kept adjusting. By the third and fourth, I started using the terrain better, retreating to narrow spots so they couldn't attack together, taking cover against archers, waiting for recovery gaps on long weapons. After over a dozen fights, I had several wounds, but I was getting the rhythm. I understood better why some people get much more out of the same attributes. It's all in technique and judgment. Outside, Instructor Mo Jinkson watched my screen and said my combat technique was absolute trash. Instructor Xiaji said it was normal since I had never learned systematically and I was adapting fast. She said that's why it was troublesome. Others were patching shortcomings, but I was rebuilding from the foundation. Xiaji said I learned quickly. Mo Jinkson replied that throwing me straight into the dungeon like this would probably give me more gains than a month at a normal university. I kept pushing through the Blacktooth Stronghold. I fought the minions carefully, using the terrain, blocking sightlines, and learning their movements. I got hit a lot and drank several recovery potions, but I kept going and slowly improved. It took over 5 hours to reach the boss, the Blacktooth Stronghold leader. It was strong with a huge saber. I kited it, avoided direct blocks, and struck at its ankles, knees, and wrists. After 30 minutes of careful fighting, I finally cut its neck and cleared the dungeon. When I came out, Instructor Mo Jinkson said I was the slowest. Most others finished their first run in about 3 hours. She asked mockingly if this was the performance of a perfect score newcomer. I didn't argue. I asked if I could use skills outside the dungeon. She said yes. I used life-buying money right away. Golden light covered me and restored all my wounds, stamina, and energy in seconds. Both instructors looked surprised at how fast and complete the recovery was. Without saying more, I walked back to the same dungeon entrance and went in again. The second run was much smoother. I dodged better, countered faster, and finished the first minion in under 3 seconds. I kept improving as I advanced. I continued the second run in the Blacktooth Stronghold. I took better positions, used the terrain, blocked sightlines, and picked monsters off more efficiently. Injuries dropped a lot. I cleared it in 3 hours and 32 minutes. The third run was even smoother. I actively set up fights, memorized ambush spots, and moved with clearer rhythm. I took down the boss in 20 minutes and finished the whole dungeon in 3 hours and 1 minute. Instructor Mo Jingson saw the time and said, "Now that's more like it." Instructor Xiaji smiled and noted it wasn't easy to get praise from her. I recovered instantly with life-buying money each time I came out and went straight back in. Meanwhile, the other newcomers started struggling badly on their third runs. Mental fatigue, slower reactions, and declining efficiency hit them hard. Shen Jinglei and Shi Yanqing were pushing through but clearly slowing down too. On the surveillance screen, I stood out. While everyone else got more tired and messy, I kept getting faster and stayed energetic thanks to the quick recovery. Instructor Xiaji chuckled and said at this rate, I might overtake them. Instructor Mo Jingson watched seriously and said this kind of intense training was needed to draw out a true genius's potential. Xiaji added that my recovery ability was stronger than most recovery class professionals, making me unusually stacked in every way. I kept going in the Blacktooth stronghold. On the fourth run, I was more composed. I handled waves almost by instinct, used terrain better, and got fewer injuries. I cleared it in 2 hours and 50 minutes. When I came out, some newcomers resting in the plaza saw me and were shocked. One asked how many times I'd finished. I said 4. They couldn't believe it. I used life-buying money to recover fully in seconds, then went straight back in for the 5th run. Instructor Mo Jingson saw the others watching and mocked them. She said it was fine if class gaps were big, but now everyone had skills disabled and attributes suppressed to the same level. They were university students, yet still behind a high schooler. The newcomers' faces turned red. One stood up angrily and said he was continuing. The rest followed. Inside, on my 5th run, I moved with real ease. I no longer reacted passively. I controlled the fights, blocked sightlines, forced overlaps, and struck at the right moments. 3 monsters, blade, spear, and bow, fell almost instantly. I laughed quietly. For the first time without skills or high attributes, I truly felt in control of the battle. I finally understood why Instructor Mo Jingson trained us this way. Removing skills and suppressing attributes wasn't just to make it hard. It forced us to polish pure judgment, observation, footwork, rhythm, and combat choices. These basics seemed simple, but once skills and attributes came back, the improvement would be huge. I was sure my combat power would be several times stronger when I returned to normal. When I came out the 5th time, Instructor Mo Jingson just told me not to stop and to continue with the other training projects. I nodded, used life-buying money to recover fully again, and headed straight to the next parts. Later, Shi Yanqing finally came out of his 5th dungeon. He looked completely exhausted, covered in blood and sweat. He asked Instructor Mo Jingson if he was first. She said 2nd. He froze and asked who was first. She said it was me. Shi Yanqing stood there stunned. He couldn't understand how I finished first when he had the better foundation and experience. He sat down in a daze and drank a recovery potion, still looking lost. Instructor Xiaji explained that I started slow at 5.5 hours, but kept getting faster each run, and my instant recovery let me pull ahead overall. Later, I moved to the environment simulation space. There were no skill or attribute restrictions. I had to defeat a gatekeeper 20 levels higher in random harsh environments. In the toxic swamp, I summoned 1 money ghost. After the basic dungeon training, my control over it felt much finer. I dodged precisely and killed the level 130 toxic swamp giant crocodile instantly. Outside, the instructor saw I cleared the first simulation in 1 minute. They were stunned. I finished all 10 simulations quickly. The basic dungeons had sharpened my instincts, and these let me integrate them perfectly with my skills. My control over the money ghosts now felt completely natural. I didn't rest. I twisted my neck, felt the gains were substantial, and walked straight to the next training. The gravity room. I finished the gravity chamber after half an hour. My whole body ached like it had been crushed. I used life-buying money and recovered completely, then went straight to the mental pressure chamber. Another half hour later, I came out pale, rubbing my splitting head, and used life-buying money again to restore my mental energy. I continued to the reaction training chamber and the rest of the customized sessions. The instructors kept getting notifications every half hour as I completed each one. In the plaza, the other newcomers were sprawled out exhausted, trying to recover. Shen Jinglei was lying on a stone pier, looking drained. Instructor Mo Jingson mocked them, saying Lu Feng had already entered his last customized session and would finish the entire day's training soon. Everyone went silent, shocked. Shen Jinglei jumped up and started doing his 10,000 basic saber slashes right there. At the 20th hour, I finished the Battlefield Command simulation space. I recovered with life-buying money and walked back to the assembly plaza. I told Instructor Mo Jingson and Instructor Xiaji that my training tasks were complete. She looked surprised but said I had 4 hours of free time. I thought for a moment and made a request. I asked if in future training I could plan my own time. The customized plan helps with weaknesses, but I feel it's too rigid. Dungeon grinding combined with integrating gravity, reaction, and mental pressure into actual combat would be more efficient.